What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And today we want to talk about one New York Giants player who just hasn't lived up to expectations, to put it bluntly. I mean, Jalin Hyatt, when the New York Giants traded up in the third round of the 2022 NFL Draft to draft him, or 23 rather, to select him, we had really high hopes. We thought that was going to be one of the steals of the middle rounds of the draft. I mean, if you guys remember during that pre-draft process, there were a lot of mock drafts that had him going to the Giants in the first round of the draft. He fell all the way into round 3. They make the move, trade up, and grab him, and since then, well, he hasn't really done much of anything. He hasn't scored a touchdown. He's barely sniffed the field. And this past season, despite how bad the Giants were, and despite how much sense it made to get some young guys on the field and get them developing, he still barely sniffed the field. Now, of course, Malik Nabers was getting the bulk of the targets, and that makes sense. And he's going to continue to be the focal point of the offense. But somebody needs to complement Malik Nabers. And unfortunately, the Giants haven't seemed to indicate that they think Jalin Hyatt is capable of that. So we want to have a conversation about him, say, what's going on with Jalin? You know, what's his future here with the New York Giants? Does he even have one? Is he a playmaker who's maybe not being utilized properly? Or is he just another draft bust? We're going to go ahead and kind of have a conversation about that. But before we do, Alex, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, man. And listen, the Giants have a situation on their hands where they traded up for a third-round pick only 2 years ago in Jalin Hyatt, and he has mounted to a total of, let's see here, 435 yards and 0 touchdowns. The Giants cannot not afford to toss away third-round picks anymore. They need to get value out of these players, and Jalin Hyatt has been unfortunately on the short end of that stick. Now, obviously, he came from a Tennessee offense that was very, very specific. And Anthony, you've been talking the last couple of days about how, well, the Giants have been running more of a West Coast style offense. Why? Because they don't have the playmakers in their offensive lines banged up or the quarterback to execute a high octane, aggressive downfield offense, and that's the offense the Giants drafted Jalin Hyatt to be a part of. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, it's not the offense they've been running. Now, the reason I believe that there is a somewhat decent future for Jalin Hyatt with the Giants is because if they get the quarterback right, if they get the offensive line right, which, of course, this is all very optimistic. We don't know if they're going to end up doing either of those two things, but if they luck into fixing those equations, those variables in the equations, Jalin Hyatt will have a role here. The problem is he's not a good enough route runner. He doesn't have good enough hands, and he doesn't have enough value in the short passing game to be a West Coast style piece, right? He's not going to play in the Xavier Worthy type of game for you if you're the Giants. He's not going to offer that type of support. And that's kind of how I feel about him right now. In the system we've been running, he's a net negative. He doesn't offer you any value. That's why we've seen a lot more from different options. Even Darius Slayton, his game is more of an explosive downfield type of offense, and he barely got the ball the last half of the season. They got the ball to Malik Nabers a lot more because he's just a one-size-fits-all kind of player. He can help you in a West Coast style, but he can also help you on deep shots and being a little bit more aggressive. And obviously they depended on him. They wanted to see his growth in real time. But Jalin Hyatt, he was drafted to play a specified role, which is why I do think that this offseason is going to be important for the Giants because they want to get back to being an explosive offense. They're going to have to make some big changes, Anthony. I don't have much faith they're going to accomplish those things, but if they do manage to get in the right direction, we're going to see Hyatt become a little bit more of a piece, at least a usable piece, for lack of a better term, and that's kind of how I foresee this offseason going. But, what are your thoughts on how the Giants can get him involved? And it's going to require a system overhaul for the most part.
It is, and I think one of the main factors in the New York Giants offense working against Jalin Hyatt, Alex, is actually their offensive line. They oftentimes do want to get the ball out quick and create yards after the catch opportunities, and that's not a big strength in Jalin Hyatt's game, unfortunately. He's not a guy who can catch the ball 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage and turn it into an 8 to 15 yard gain like a Wan'Dale Robinson or Malik Nabers can. Instead, he does the majority of his receiving yards with the ball out of his hands while running his routes, going downfield and then making the reception. And unfortunately, when you have a bad offensive line, you don't have all day to wait for those routes to develop. And those routes that need time to develop, those are Jalin Hyatt's routes. So if the New York Giants do want to become more of a downfield passing offense, take some more opportunities and shots and kind of push the ball downfield and press some leverage against these cornerbacks on the outside and these cover twos and take these hole shots, Well, they're going to need an offensive line that has the ability to pass protect for whichever quarterback is back there. But for the last several years, the New York Giants haven't had that, especially not while Jalin Hyatt has been here. His rookie season, the team let up 85 sacks in the season. So just ridiculous numbers from the offensive line every single year. Absolutely among the worst in the league. And that's had a really bad adverse effect on Jalin Hyatt's ability to produce downfield. But Alex, what's your take on his route running capabilities? Because I think that there are a few things holding back Hyatt. Like I said, the offensive line, that's one thing. The quarterback play has been another. But also, let's evaluate him specifically as a player. I see major room for improvement in his route running. I don't think he's physical enough while running his routes. I don't think he's as explosive as we thought he would be coming out of some of those breaks as well. And unfortunately, if you're not able to separate at the NFL level, it doesn't matter if you were the Fred Biletnikoff Award winner at the collegiate level. It doesn't matter how many yards you put up in the SEC while you were in college playing for Tennessee. If you can't separate as a route runner, you're just not going to get the ball in the NFL. And what have you seen from him in that regard, Alex? Do you think that he has some separation abilities that maybe the Giants are overlooking, or do you think that is a legitimate weakness in his game?
I mean, the truth of the matter is he's kind of weak, right? He's not going to be a 50-50 ball go-getter for the Giants. He's not like a physically imposing receiver. He's got some height to him, but he's not going to outmuscle cornerbacks. And that's kind of where I see. And his game speed has been a bit disappointing, Anthony. I have to be quite honest. Like watching him play, he's not always open downfield. And I think that's because teams, obviously, they know a lot of these balls have been underthrown. So it's not like he's blazing by them anyway. But one thing I do think that, obviously it's the quarterback, you mentioned that, but Tyrod Taylor, we saw him take some shots to Hyatt. He was open. He doesn't have the best hands I've ever seen. I actually don't even think, in hindsight, it was worth spending a third round pick on him, let alone trading up for him, because he was such a specific player in an air raid Tennessee offense that was built for a downfield centric style. He has been lost in the mix in that regard. And the thing about the Giants, like you see the Chiefs, man, and this is what I love about the Chiefs. They took Xavier Worthy. And when the first couple of games we saw him play, he was very underdeveloped. Like he looked like he needed some time. Now we're heading to the Super Bowl, and Xavier Worthy is one of the best receivers in football. The Chiefs know how to develop players. And the reason they do that is because they design plays for those players. They build an offense around these players. They factor them into the equation. They know when to take the shots, what looks they're looking for. All these different things play a part in how they maximize the talent they have on the roster. They don't draft players just to sit them down and let them rot. They incorporate them into the system and help them build confidence. The Giants, however, do the exact opposite of that. They take them out of the equation. They fail to get them the ball. They fail to scheme them the ball. They just don't do anything to build confidence for players. I mean, look, Malik Neighbors got a lot of, arguably too many targets this past season because nobody else on this roster was given a chance to even have a role. That's kind of the difference between coaching when you look at the Giants and the Chiefs. It's like they find ways to maximize talent. The Giants let them rot on the bench. Or they trade it away, or they let them walk in free agency. Like that's kind of the difference. So we need to get back to helping the players that we draft and acquire, build some plays for them. Factor them into the game plan. Help them build confidence. You hear Jalin Hyatt after every single game, he sounds miserable. You think a player's going to go out there and play his best football sounding the way that Jalin Hyatt did all year long? There's no freaking way. You know what I mean? There's just no way. They've destroyed that young man's confidence, and now he's going to play like it. And he's human at the end of the day. And I think that's something that kind of falls to deaf ears sometimes, Anthony, is like when you're disrupting the development, the flow of a young player, and now they're being asked questions like, do you even have a role here? Like, what do you see happening? And he's like, I don't know. Ask Dabes. Like, I don't know what my role is here. I don't know what's going to happen. You think he's going to go out there and put on a show for you? Absolutely not, because they've ruined the kid's confidence already. So I think they got to get him involved. If they're going to keep, using him and they're going to keep him on the roster and not trade him, they have to try to build some plays for this young man. They have to get him going. They have to build his confidence, and then he will become a valuable piece to this equation. But the way that we've been going, man, for a lot of the players on this team, it certainly isn't about building confidence. It's about fitting square pegs into round holes. That's been the game plan. Like, they do the opposite of what they say half the time. And I really want to see them flip that switch and get back to what they're good at and get back to what they've done in terms of drafting players to fill a specific role. Hyatt is a specific player, man. He was never going to be an all size, like one size fits all. He was a deep air raid type of receiver, explosive playmaker. They need to get the quarterback that's going to help them execute a system like that. Because I think that's where Dable wants to go. A lot of analysts are saying the same thing. They think Dable wants to go back to what he's great at, and that's developing a quarterback and really getting his explosive offense back. I never really thought he was a West Coast style play caller. He just really had no choice because of what we had at his disposal. He wants to be more explosive. And that's what he said verbatim this past offseason. We're going to have a more explosive offense. Didn't happen because the playmakers and the players just didn't have that capacity. So I think this offseason is going to be about getting back to his roots, and it's the only way that he can save his job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I really was shocked by the fact that the Giants had such a conservative game plan on the docket last year, considering all of that we heard Brian Daboll say. And it wasn't just Daboll, Alex. It was Kafka as well. Anytime they spoke to the media, they said, we want to make a more explosive offense. Even Darius Slayton was saying, yeah, in all of our offseason meetings, the conversation has been, how do we make the offense more explosive? We're going to place an emphasis on creating explosive plays. And those explosive plays just never really came to fruition. It's unfortunate as it is, but that is the reality that we saw from the New York Giants in 2024. Honestly, Alex, I feel like the only real opportunity that Jalin Hyatt got was in that preseason game against the Houston Texans, right? Daniel Jones takes that deep shot down the right sideline. Derek Stingley makes a hell of a play, intercepts it. But dude, that was Derek Stingley. I like, that wasn't a great play by Jalin Hyatt. We broke it down. I did a film breakdown on the channel, and I pretty much explained, like, he didn't stack the defensive back all that well, and, you know, he could have been more aggressive at the catch point, and we all agree on those points, but keep in mind, he was being covered by Derek Stingley. Most other cornerbacks, good chance that Jalin Hyatt did just blow by them for an easy walk-in touchdown. Derek Stingley's just one of the best in the NFL, so you have to keep that in mind when you're talking about that specific play, and it seems like the New York Giants didn't keep that in mind. They were just like, oh, well, on that one play where we gave him that deep shot, you know, it's just a waste. Why even give him another one if he couldn't maximize that opportunity? And I think that was just very backwards logic. At least that's how it felt to me. So I would have liked to see him get some opportunities again, especially down the stretch. Giants were eliminated from the playoffs in what, October? Like on Halloween? There was an extra 3 months there, even more, a full 3 months that they could have gotten him the football, and they just didn't even make an effort to. And Alex, I am reminded as well that at the end of the season, during his exit interviews, Jalin Hyatt really was uncertain about his future. He did not say that he will definitely be back with the New York Giants in 2025. He left it open to a potential release, trade, or him asking for a way out. So keep in mind, like, we're talking about Jalin Hyatt, we're talking about how the New York Giants should try to get him involved. There's absolutely potential for him to be shipped off at some point this offseason. And in my opinion, that would just be an utter failure by the New York Giants to go 3 seasons or 2 seasons in Jalin Hyatt's career, never actually give him a legitimate opportunity to compete, and then just trade him away. That would be wildly disappointing from the perspective of a fan who watched Jalin Hyatt in college, knew he was a special talent. That's why he won the Blutnikoff Award. I get it. NFL speed and college speed is different. He's blazing fast at the collegiate level. Nobody is as fast at the collegiate level as they are in the NFL unless you're like a freak mutant like Tyreek Hill. So obviously that plays a part. When you are a speedster, you have to make an adjustment and refine the other portions of your game. And I don't know necessarily whether or not Jalin Hyatt had done that, but Alex, I also do remember in training camp, all those highlight videos that we saw of him making contested catches, one-handed grabs, he looked like he put on some size and was more aggressive at the catch point. So we just never got to see him have an opportunity to demonstrate that during the regular season. And that really is a shame. The New York Giants very badly messed up the development of this young player. And I am so sick and tired of watching them mess up the development of young players. Josh Azidu is another example. Why the hell did that man get moved to left tackle? Keep him at guard. He was fine there. He was developing there. Stunted his growth. We've seen it time and time again, and the New York Giants really just need to stop stunting the growth of these players and finally get some sort of proper player development program in this system. Otherwise, we're just going to keep seeing mid and late round picks go to waste, and the Giants just can't afford to waste any more draft picks. They need some more immediate contributors. But I'm very curious to see what happens, especially as we get through the offseason, Alex. The New York Giants are definitely going to be looking to add playmakers regardless, so there is a chance that Jalin Hyatt just continues to get pushed down on the depth chart, and then it's kind of over. Then maybe he does get traded for a late round pick later in the offseason. But we'll keep tabs on that, of course, and we'll keep an eye on what the Giants do in free agency, maybe on the trade market. And then again, the NFL draft, mid-round wide receivers. It's often a time, you just throw a dart at the board at the receiver position in the second or third round, and again, that might work against Jalin Hyatt. But we'll see how it goes, and of course, we'll continue to update you guys on everything surrounding the New York Giants and Jalin Hyatt right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.